One of the big highlights of UFC 205 was Romero's spectacular flying knee win over Weidman. I had it 1-1 after the first two, but all scorecards went out the fucking window moments into the third. Weidman starts to change levels, Yoel times his shot perfectly, turns himself into a human missile, launches himself at Chris, and catches Weidman with a wicked flying knee to the face and neck. It was just another one of those glorious, out-of-the-blue moments of gratuitous fucking violence that MMA fans dream about. After a couple unnecessary shots, Mario Yamasaki stepped in and saved Weidman's life. But Yoel proceeded to jump the cage and gave us one of the more epic celebrations by goose-stepping round the octagon like the badass soldier of God that he is. Unfortunately for Romero, the New York State Athletic Commission appeared to be sticking to the letter of the law, and they slapped his ass with a 60-day suspension. Apparently, you can't leave the octagon until the fight is officially over. My initial reaction was that the suspension was at least excessive, but on second thoughts, it's actually completely inconsequential. 60 days has absolutely no impact on Yoel's timetable. Bisping has accepted the fight for spring, and Yoel hinted at a possible slot on UFC 208, which is late January. So really, who gives a shit? It's a purely symbolic suspension. The New York State Athletic Commission essentially fired a warning shot into the roof, and if they are going to be strict about this type of shit, it's better that we know now before anybody pulls a Jose Aldo, darts into the crowd, and faces a more extreme penalty. It's a total non-issue. I've noticed some people are talking about Yoel like he's the fucking Al Capone of MMA. Al Capone was out murdering motherfuckers, bootlegging, racketeering, and in the end they got him for tax evasion. I've seen comments where people have been like, Jesus Christ, after all this shit Yoel's pulled, they finally get him on leaving the octagon early? I didn't even realize that was illegal. But personally, I'm not in that camp, so I'm just glad the suspension didn't fuck up his title shot. The upside of the whole thing is that it's given a lot of press to Yoel's epic celebration and post-fight interview, which was great. I'm gonna make another video about Khabib, but guys like Yoel and Khabib, they're the real salt and pepper in the soup. They bring something unique to the sport, and they both made very emphatic cases for a title shot. They also both put out phenomenal post-fight performances and showed huge potential in terms of marketability. I'll be honest, I was sleeping on that aspect of these guys, particularly Khabib. That guy is a stone-cold killer, and he's brilliant on the mic. So keeping Yoel's personality in the headlines is the silver lining of all the Athletic Commission's bullshit. I had mentioned in a previous video that I really feel like this is a golden age in the middleweight division. Just the sheer depth, the diversity, the matchups, it's all just fucking outstanding. And it was pretty clear from some of the quotes that the queue of savages at middleweight kind of regarded a title shot against Bisping as like opening a candy bar and finding one of Willy Wonka's golden fucking tickets. Weidman said he was embarrassed to have Bisping as champ. Rockhold was clearly shocked and appalled by his loss. I mean, Tim Kennedy admitted that Bisping holding the belt was a significant factor in his return to the octagon. Well, prior to UFC 205, the contenders were somewhat of a disorganized mess. Rockhold got injured, leaving Jacare at a loose end, and Bisping had been quoted saying he wouldn't fight Yoel even if he beat Weidman. So although the division had super potential, there was a lot of uncertainty in how events were about to unfold. Well, Yoel went in there and molly-whopped the fuck out of Weidman, and in one vicious flying knee, he brought undeniable order to the middleweight division. I feel bad for Jacare, but with a victory like that over a monster like Weidman, there can be absolutely no doubt that the man who's emerged with the golden ticket standing at the front of the middleweight queue is Yoel Romero. It's basically indisputable. We have our number one contender, and he is a fucking savage. There's that old cliche in MMA, he's never fought a guy like me. But that does legitimately apply to Yoel Romero in every sense. Yoel is a freak in nature, apex predator, coming from a terrifying fucking gene pool. People talk about the Jones family. John's the greatest light heavyweight of all time, and his two brothers are competing in the NFL. Amazing genetics. But those Romeros, they're no fucking slouches either. Yoel's a two-time Olympian in freestyle wrestling, and he took the silver medal in 2000. His brother Pablo is a 6'4" monster, a former cruiserweight world champion boxer. In other words, destroying motherfuckers is in their DNA. They were put on this planet to hurt their fellow man. Now I gotta give credit where credit is due. I've been called a Bisping nuthugger and a Bisping hater, depending on the video. The reality is that I'm a Bisping fan, and when this channel started, I was a staunch supporter of the guy. But as events unfolded, the Nick Diaz call out turning down Souza and implying that he flat out would not fight Yoel, I did become critical of what I regarded as someone being overly opportunistic with the belt. Well, I am more than happy to be eating those words. I'll eat the fuckers for breakfast if it means the best are fighting the best. As soon as Bisping emerged during Yoel's post-fight interview, I felt he was basically accepting the fight, because taunting Romero and giving him the opportunity to address him directly in front of millions of fans was only ever gonna build hype for the fight. Then a couple days later, he informally accepted the fight for sometime in the spring. So, like I said, happy to be eating my words here, and hopefully that puts a stop to the avalanche of hateful shit that recently descended upon the poor guy's Instagram account. Look, the man stepped up as soon as he possibly could. Overall, the fight is a perfect opportunity for both guys to answer their biggest critics. The biggest criticism of Bisping is that he tried to avoid top contenders in favor of relatively easier money fights. Well, the dice landed the way they did, and the man who emerged as the undeniable #1 contender is easily the scariest guy in the whole division. And Bisping accepted that fight instantly, so he's already shut my ass up. But if Bisping can beat Yoel, he sends a very clear message to his more outspoken critics. Yeah, I may have looked for a big fight or two, who wouldn't? But make no mistake, buddy, I'm #1, and I can beat any motherfucker on this planet. For Yoel, his biggest critics were actually Weidman and Bisping. Both guys stated in no uncertain terms that Romero should be banned for life. Well, Romero already silenced Weidman in the most emphatic fucking fashion. And next spring, he'll have the chance to address Bisping in the octagon. Bisping said he should be banned for life, and after his win, Romero tweeted that he'd be hosting a retirement party on the 28th of January. In other words, hey Bisping, one of us is gonna be leaving this sport permanently, but it ain't gonna be fucking me.